So it's been a minute. I know, y'all, it's been so long. I know, like, I haven't been on here in a minute. It's December. We had so many different plans for the year. But this is the first of many videos to come out. This is a video that I'm very excited about and I'm very proud of, and I want to show you guys. I got to interview one of my favorite authors, Miss Kennedy Ryan. Her new book, Before I Let Go, came out this month, and it is amazing. I got to read it as an ARC back in July this year. It's a second chance romance between a divorced couple. This is a Black romance. This is co-parenting, running a business together, PTA shenanigans. This is a romance, but also a book of healing and grieving and just amazing representation for, Black characters, mental health, just female friend groups, parent-child relationships. It's just amazing. So I got to interview her. I'm so excited that I was able to do so. And you guys are going to watch it. So let's go ahead. Okay, so kind of like a little roll question. Okay, so you said that the book was about 15 years in the making.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, how did you go about finishing the story, kind of like bringing it to like present day versus when you initially started it?
It was such a process. Well, first of all, I had never intended to publish the book. It was kind of like an exercise years ago just to see, can I actually do this? Like, I talked before about how my background is journalism. And so I'd always written like nonfiction articles. I wrote a lot. I do a lot around autism advocacy. I'm a special needs mom. I would write in Mom magazine, stuff like that. Writing for nonprofits. And when it started to kind of like tickle my mind that I might want to write fiction, I had an idea, and it's not about a couple who's divorced. And someone the other day was like, what inspired that? And I was like, I have no idea. And then I was like, you know what? I've been married 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, it was probably a pivotal point in my marriage. Like, it was probably a point of tension. I think something was probably going on, and it's like, if you've been married for a while, you have these like benchmarks where you're like, okay, this is forever, right? Like, this is my person forever, and he absolutely is. He's amazing. But I think that it was maybe one of those kind of like pivotal points where you start just asking questions about marriage and about your happily ever after. And I wrote this book, a divorced couple, but it wasn't Before I Let Go. Like, it had the divorced couple, it had the 2 kids, it was set in Atlanta, there was a restaurant named Grits, like there were a lot of those elements, but there's a strong, thread of mental health representation with navigating depression, grief. None of that was there. The loss was there, but the effects weren't. And I think part of that is because, and I've been saying, I feel like this book was waiting for me to grow up, because when I wrote it, I never intended to publish it. It was just kind of languishing under my bed virtually. And my agent came to me after I published a book titled Real, summer of 2021. And after that, I just didn't know what I was going to do next. And I didn't feel compelled to write about anything. And my agent was like, what's next? And my husband was like, what about that divorced couple? And I was like, ew. Because I was like, that book is crap. And he's like, no, it was good, because he had read it. And so I brought it out, and I was like, well, it is crap, but maybe I can salvage it. And I started kind of massaging it and really bringing a lot of what I've learned as a mom and as a wife and as a human into the story. I was diagnosed, I've been really open about the fact that I was diagnosed with depression while writing this book, and Yasmin, the heroine, is navigating depression. I felt a real fortuitous intersection of like this fictional world I was building and my reality. And I think that really infused what I wrote with a compassion and an empathy for Yasmin's journey in particular that maybe I wouldn't have had before. Maybe I would have, but I think I described this book once as I feel like I wore the skin of this book, and that's how it felt. It felt like it was such an extension of me in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's singular and it's its own thing, but in a lot of ways, it felt like some of my therapy sessions, once I got into therapy, were literally like lifted. I'm like, this is for you, Yasmin, so. It's a very personal book, and I think of this book as like it was just waiting for me to grow up, and to evolve and become, for my character to be refined, and for me to have something to say, So that's a long answer.
That is an amazing answer. So I wanted to ask about kind of how you storyboard your characters, because I've noticed when you're particularly writing your male characters, you write men who are challenging when it comes to addressing kind of vulnerability and emotions. How did you go about that in the story with Josiah? Because he's different from past male characters you've written before.
You mean he's different in the sense that he isn't as vulnerable and it isn't as easy for him to access those emotions? Yeah, I think that's what the story called for. In the sense that Yasmin has this line where she says, because they as a family suffer great loss, like back-to-back personal losses. And Yasmin says at one point we were completely incompatible in our grief. And he was kind of like a foil. What was going on with him was kind of like a foil to what was going on with her. I've talked about this in a few interviews. So if anybody's been watching, they're like, okay, I know exactly what he's going to say. But it's like he, in contrast to Yasmin, he did what a lot of guys do when they hurt, which is run from their emotions, which is like, okay, I need to provide. I'll work. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll keep everything going. Anything to avoid dealing with the actual feelings. And Yasmin, he was running from his feelings, and Yasmin was mired in her feelings. She couldn't move. And I think that it was his journey, both of their journeys, which explains how they can be together in the end. Because for me, what makes a good second chance romance is, one, I need to really understand what broke them up in the first place. And it better be good. It better be good. Why'd you guys break up? So, because if you're soulmates, what tore you apart? So that, and I think we have that. Life is what tore them apart. Tragedy is what tore them apart. And not having the emotional bandwidth to process what was happening is what tore them apart. What brings them back together? What brings them back together is both of them on their individual journeys of healing. And so Josiah has there's such a huge growth arc for him emotionally. So he starts all the way back here, where he's completely resistant to therapy, not realizing that his complete resistance to therapy is actually a complete resistance to healing. And so when he concedes and starts that healing journey, and Yasmin's been on her healing journey, then they're not the same people. So because the other thing that makes a big difference in a second chance romance, one, what broke you up, what brings you back together, and we know that, and what's going to be different. Oh, lights went out. Hi, everybody. I don't know what.
Yeah, these emotion sensor kind of.
Oh, okay, I got you. So I think, and then, do I believe that you're going to stay together? And I think that part of what hopefully the reader is led to believe, yes, they will stay together, is because Josiah is a different person, and so is Yasmin. They're the same people, but they've grown in such a way that now they can actually do their lives together. And so I think it was interesting for me to write because he is a little less emotionally available than someone like an Ezra from Queen Moon, who's completely like, I say that my brand is an alpha cinnamon role, because I don't really write pure alphas, generally, unless you count, for people who read my books, Jared from Blockshot. a pure alpha. Some people would say border on sociopath. That's probably the closest. And Maxim from the Kingmaker and Rebel King, very close to more of like a pure alpha, but also humanitarian, environmentalist. He's just a little bit different. Josiah is much less emotionally available because of what he's been through. His inability to deal with loss predates his marriage to Yasmin. There are losses that he experienced as a child, and then there was a loss that he experienced with, his guardian, who is Aunt Bird, who is, it's like she's not here, but she's very present. So I think that's a big part of why Josiah's character had so much growing to do, and so did Yasmin's.
Yeah, I've noticed throughout reading the book, initially when you meet Josiah, he's kind of you can tell that he's that person that holds a lot of emotions in, and there are times where I was mad at him and I just wanted just talk your feelings, please.
Right.
And then towards the end, I was like, okay, I'm not mad at you now. Okay.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, I think you have in context. I think that sometimes when we're used to reading romance, there is an idealism that sometimes is in a lot of romance, and I don't really lean into that in the same way. I really lean into something that's very real life, that's very raw. I mind those things, and so for me, I put Josiah in context. People would like for him to be like, oh my gosh, it's so swoony, and I mean, sometimes you'll get that, yes, but in context, Josiah is a man who has experienced great loss, isn't sure how to process it, and then the thing that he loves more than anything in the world, which is Yasmin, because say what you want to say, Josiah loves some Yasmin, right? He loses that because she leaves him. And there's so much distrust. You know what I mean? And it's a process, because I think it's easy to say, oh, Josiah had so much growing to do, and ignoring that Yasmin also had growing to do. And that's their journey, is that they're both growing. And I think for me, I do think that Josiah is probably the most complex character in the book. He has all of these layers of hurt and distrust. And Yasmin, I felt like I knew Yasmin, because I felt like so much of what Yasmin was going through was an extension of what I was going through. And she was just on the page to me. I think there's a scene close to the end of the book where it feels like Josiah is fully revealed. And I don't know, I don't want to be super spoilery, but it's his last therapy session that we see. And it's like we've been getting glimpses of his growth and of his healing. And then all of a sudden in this last therapy session, he has this breakthrough. And as a writer, I felt like Josiah was a mystery to me. There were parts of him that I didn't even know about until that session. You know what I mean? Literally, as I remember writing that session, and he has these memories of things that he's lost. And he's repeating them, and he's reliving them, and he has an emotional response that he's never been free to feel. And I remember writing those things and not knowing them before I wrote them. Do you know what I mean? It's like the details of the loss he suffered when he was a child, when his parents died, the details of when Bird died, the details of they lost a child. That's in the content warnings, not super spoilery. He remembered those things vividly. And I had not sketch those details out. It just came as I was writing. And I felt like, wow, there's things I didn't know about Josiah that I'm finding out here at the end too. And I know I hope the reader felt that way.
Yeah, it really did felt that way, seeing him have an epiphany with his emotions, and those last 2 chapters when you get to see really he wants to have his family back, but there's still the distrust of how they ended.
Right.
And normally we don't get to see that side when it comes to male characters, because normally we see it with female characters, but with male characters we get to see somebody who is acknowledging their grief, but also saying, I don't feel safe coming back in because I don't know if this could happen again.
Yes.
Because like you said, they went after back-to-back tragedies, and part of him in his mind probably thinks, what if something like this were to happen again?
Right.
What if you leave again?
Right. And I think what's important to remember too is his distrust is rooted in fear. Mm-hmm. You know, because his therapist at one point asks him, and this isn't super spoilery, but he's like, do you want her back? And he's like, what if she came back? What if you guys were together again and it worked out? And he was like, I will be the happiest guy on the planet if that happened. And then the therapist says, and what if it didn't work? And he's like, I can't live through that again. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's too devastating for him to think. And he says at one point, I'm not sure that I did survive losing Yasmin. You know, he was like, I feel like I'm just like faking it. You know, like there's pieces of me that are missing. And I'm not sure that I did survive losing Yasmin. And I don't think I could do it again. Yeah. And so when you hear someone saying things like that, then you understand the hesitation is not just him like, I'm not sure I want to do this again. It is, it would be too devastating for me to think that we could be together again, and then we can't.
That is a journey that you go through with Josiah. Another question I have is that in the book, you not only see Yasmin and Josiah go for a journey, you get to see the kids in a way be part of that journey too, with, you know, their individual relations with the kids, especially with Yasmin and Deja. And there are parts of like the novel where, you know, I was kind of mad at Deja for a little bit, and I remember, okay, she's a teenager, it's fine. Right. But then when we get to the reason why she's mad at her mom, it's just kind of that big revelation where you kind of like, okay, we understand it now. Right. And we understand why this relationship is just fractured. Right. And it goes into a lot of mother-daughter relationships that aren't talked about, like why, you know, did this kind of like for her perspective on why the family ended. Yes. And you don't really get to see that kid's perspective. Right. And I think what I will say is that Deja is a mess. You know, like, Deja's a mess. I get so many DMs about Deja. Like, if Deja was my girl, ain't no way. I get Yasmin better than me, because I'm telling you, you know, I get all of those DMs. But I think also, again, putting Deja in context is that Deja had this amazing life and this amazing family. And it was, I think if you talk to a lot of kids of divorce, you understand that pain sometimes as you unpack that. It's like your world is kind of ripped apart. Yeah. And from her perspective, it was her mother's fault, you know, and she blamed her mother for that. And I think it was really, it was important that we see Yasmin struggling with how to parent her. There's a session that she has with her therapist where she's like, how much leeway am I giving this kid? Because I'm about to snap. Yeah. You know, Deja about to get these hands. You know, it's like, and her therapist reminds her, you have to understand, like, the same devastation that you experience, she experienced, but without the emotional maturity that you have. You know, like, she went through all of that and she's a child. Yeah. So she doesn't even know how to process this. Not that you don't set boundaries, not that you don't parent her, but that you have compassion for her and that you understand what she's going through. Yeah. And give her grace, as much grace as you can. You know, not letting her get away with everything. But, so, you know. Yeah, Deja and Yasmin's relationship is really great to see in the book. Also, the other relationships with Yasmin, including her friends, and I really enjoyed reading that. Yeah. And you mentioned before, like, wanting to write a female friend group who were in like their 30s and older. Yes. And it was really great to see, because I'm so used to like reading like in my age group, like in your 20s, right. But in your 30s you have, you know, a dynamic where you have one friend who's a mom that has a career. You have the one friend with no kids but is, you know, full head in her career. Right. You have the stay-at-home mom that wants to like branch out of her usual environment. And I really love that dynamic and how they kind of lean on each other. Yes. And it was really important to me. They are older. You know, a lot of what we see kind of exploding like on Book Talk is younger, you know, and I wanted to write
grown folks.
Yeah.
You know, like I wanted to write a mature couple who's been through a lot, and who has a lot to lose, and I wanted to see those friendships of women who have kind of accomplished a lot in life, but still are leaning on each other. And it's really key what you were saying about them kind of being in, like, having different things that they're doing in their lives. Because I feel like so often we as women, it's like you have to, you know, oh, you shouldn't be working, you should be working outside the home because you're neglecting your kids, or you're staying home and you're so lazy, or you're, you know, and I wanted this friend group to be reflective of all of these different choices and a group of women who accept those choices, no matter what they are. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to denigrate you for staying home. You're not going to denigrate me for working outside the home. I'm not going to denigrate you for never wanting kids when I've got 3 and they're my whole life. Like, you know, these friends, they love and accept each other for who they are. And I think that so often we as women don't have safe space. To drill down even further, we as Black women don't have safe spaces where we can unburden and where we can completely, you know, fall apart if necessary and take off the armor that we have to put on to navigate this world. And I really wanted Yasmin to have a safe place and a safe group of people to do that with.
Yes, I love the friend dynamic so much. And speaking of the dynamic, when I was reading through the book, I noticed a couple of little Easter eggs that may lead to book 2. I know you said that's 2024.
Yeah.
But can I ask which one? It's Hendrix the next book.
It's gonna be Soledad.
It's Soledad.
Soledad is the next book, and Hendrix is book 3.
Okay.
Yes, I'm really excited.
Give that to you.
No. Child, if I gave somebody, Vanessa Riley's over there, and she said give Vashti book 4, I don't know who's gonna buy that. All the DMs I get about her, I don't know who's gonna buy that book.
Because I read noticed in the chapters, the little nuggets we were getting, especially in the epilogue, it made me think, okay, maybe Hendrix is maybe getting the next book. Since she might be hopping up for it, but you said Soledad's getting the next book.
Yes, I'm writing it now, and
wow.
I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be unexpected. Like, I think there are some things that readers will expect because I have dropped those Easter eggs about her kind of like, you know, striking out and finding her own path, that even though she loves her children so much, like finding something that's even beyond that for herself. I think that it's kind of like a eat, pray, love kind of feel, but without going off to other countries. I think that her love interest and just everything that's going to happen, I think is going to be unexpected.
Okay. So have we met the love interest already?
I'm not going to talk about it.
I tried getting that.
I'm not going to talk about it. Well, just because Soledad's married, you know, so that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
You know?
All right. We'll leave it to the imagination.
We'll leave it there.
So another Easter egg that I noticed while reading the book was we get a mention of Lotus. And I was so excited because this means that this is in the Hoops universe. And I'm always somebody that interconnects series, and I'm pretty much almost halfway through the Hoops series. So is there possibility for like possible crossovers or cameos in the future?
I don't know. Cameos always. You know, I think if people who like read my entire catalog, they're used to seeing like my characters Grip and Bristol pop up in places. You see Keenan and Lotus pop up in places. You see like or you'll hear them referenced. And, you know, different characters pop up in different places. So because for me, it's like I really want my readers when they're reading to feel like this is real, you know, and so are the other stories, and I kind of want them to feel like they all live in, they're different stories, but they all live in the same world, you know. So Lotus pops up all over the place, and I think Lotus may pop up more than just about anybody else because she's one of my favorite characters I've ever written, and I got a message the other day. They were like, Lotus, you know, because everybody loves Lotus, you know. So so there's no telling what we'll see.
Well, that's something I'm looking forward to. I, was one of many people that got to read it early.
Yes.
There's already people asking for a movie or a series. I'm asking on behalf of Book Talk, if you were to fan cast possibly Yasmin and Josiah in a possible series,
right.
Who would come to mind?
Well, all I will say about that is just stay tuned. Okay. We'll just say stay tuned.
Okay.
But I would say the one I've been telling everybody because he's amazing is Aldous Hodge.
Oh yes,
he's on my list. He's on my Pinterest board. Aldous Hodge, and I have two actresses. One is Condola Rashad, who is Alicia Rashad's daughter, who's in Billions, which I love.
Yes.
She's one, and the other is Tiki Sumpter.
Oh,
so Tiki Sumpter, those two actors, I know, as he has been. Those two actresses are on my Pinterest board for this book. I can never decide on one, so they both kind of live there with Aldous Hodge. They're not complaining.
Well, that is definitely something we are looking forward to. This is gonna be like one of my last two questions. Mm-hmm. So, from what I know, there's the Hoop series and All the Kings, Kingmaker series.
Yes.
It's been picked up. Is there any update towards that?
Yes, I think that Hoop series, it's going to be the Rebel King and the Kingmaker will come out first. Mm-hmm. They'll be re-released. I think we're shooting for May, which is actually soon. We're redoing covers now, redesigning covers now. And so we're shooting for May or June to re-release those worldwide. And for the Hoop series, I think all new covers for the Hoop series, it's through Bloom. Mm-hmm. I think October. Okay. So yeah.
Okay. I know people are definitely gonna jump in and get the cover.
Yes, I'm so excited about it. I really am.
That is great. Okay, so my last question. How has the response to people finding your book through the book talk space versus traditional publishing? Because I know that you released Real last year, and I was, introduced to your books at the beginning of this year. So how does it feel to have a new audience discover your catalog through the, book talk space and bookstagram space, and be able to find, this new avenue of romance reading that they probably didn't know before?
It's amazing because I think that because the Hoop series is 4 years old, and it's always been my most popular series, but I think a lot of book talk readers have just started reading romance in the last year, and so I think there's a real energy they infuse our community with, which is really, really exciting. I love seeing readers discover, and my usual readers are oh, these books have been out for a really long time, and these readers are oh my gosh, and I definitely think that the enthusiasm that came from book talk readers definitely fueled the expansion of the Hoop series and All the Kingsmen series through the Bloom deal, because I know that's a publisher that's looking for books that are popular on Book Talk and to expand the reach of those books and the distribution of those books. So I see a definite tie between those two things, so I'm very appreciative, very, very appreciative.
Well, I'm very excited to see you in Barnes & Noble and at Books A Million and at my nearest, airport, because I'm traveling in the next couple of months. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Y'all, the way I'm still in shock that I was able to interview her was amazing. I was already planning to go see her because I was hoping she was going to go on a book tour for this release since it's being traditionally published. So I did not expect for, her team to reach out to me and wanting to meet up with me, and they wanted to chat. So I was nervous. Being the procrastinator I am, I didn't know what to ask as questions wise. I wanted to be really good, but I didn't want to be generic. And it was really good questions. He really liked the interview. as well as, you know, the questions I was asking. There's a lot of stuff that we talked about, as you saw in the video. Book 2 is going to be Soledad, and if you haven't read the book, then you're not going to understand who the characters are, because I legit thought Hendrix was going to be the next book. But I am excited. If you have not gotten before I let go yet, please do. This book is selling out. Like, honestly, I'm so happy that this book is getting so much recognition and so much love from people. I know it's going to get optioned for the next year. I'm waiting for it, and I hope it gets like a series option. So yeah, I'm so happy that you guys get to watch this. I'm also excited for future stuff I have planned for the page. As you know, Vlogmas is coming, so I'm actually prepared this year. So your guys are going to get a bunch of videos from me related to different content and reviews and just Christmas stuff. I have my Wakanda Forever review coming. Yes, we're getting back to movie reviews as well as TV reviews, because there's a lot of TV shows that came out this year that I wanted to review. And I might do a review wrap up, probably on both TikTok and here, just because there is so much that came out. I could not keep up, guys. I couldn't keep up doing reviews because the schedule is just too much. But anyway, I'm glad to be back. I know it took me to the end of the year, but you know, as an Aquarius, I don't have stuff sorted and figured out to like the very last minute, like the 11th hour. And of course, I waited to like the end of November. But we're here, and I hope you guys are going to stick with me. Thank you so much for the support. I am doing a giveaway on TikTok for 200K that ends on, what's today, 27th? Ends on Wednesday. So go ahead into my page and do that. I'll link all my pages below, which is crazy because I can do that now. But anyway, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a great holiday. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.